Hey guys, this is Turok, and in this video I'm going to be doing what I'm calling like an initial thoughts on a video game. This might be the first time I ever do this on a video game, actually. And this one's called Trails of Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak. And I'm bringing this one up because I've tried this series before, but this is the first time with one of these that I've really got myself fully immersed in this. And I say like, as a caveat, because I like to be open about whether I've played other stuff. I did try some of the other series, and I got pretty far into one of the other ones. I think it was Trails of Cold Steel 3, but I was following a guide with that one, and I got a little, I guess you could say gave up on it, but I put it down because one, it was, I was experiencing some burnout with it, and two, it was, that one follows a similar stuff to like what Persona does with the sim life stuff, where you have free time. Because in that one, you play a character who I think was a student previously in the game, and now he's a professor. But you have this free time stuff going on, and I'm a perfectionist at heart, and I was too involved into trying to get all these little cram as much in there as possible and get it all done to not miss out. And this game does away with some of that, so this made it more refreshing that I don't feel so kind of guilty to not do that. But anyways, putting aside, yes. So these Trails games go back, to my knowledge, initially they only went back as far as the 2000s, but it looks like they'll go even further back. And they play like kind of like a tactical RPG RPG gameplay. With the older ones playing more very, I think, following into that type where you had the tiles and your characters can only move a certain amount of space. Similar to in my experience, I've played the Fire Emblem Three Houses, so my familiarity with that comes from that one. With this one and the Trails of Cold Steel games I've tried, I noticed they do away with the tile-based movement, and this is one of the things that really made me clung to this one and when I tried out Cold Steel, was that you have a movement area where you can move around the enemy, and there's like I think they have I think other tactical ones like Fire Emblem do this too, where you have, if you can get behind or to the side of enemies and use execute certain attacks, you can cause more damage. But I enjoy the part especially that there's no tile movement anymore. That was one thing that I kind of don't like that much myself. I don't like that much compared to like games, but I do find those kind of games like that in general interesting compared to Persona, which is like the first like RPGs I played outside of Pokemon in my lifetime, in my experience of RPGs, where those games, and similarly with Fire Emblem, not Fire Emblem, with Final Fantasy games, which I've dabbled in, your characters are just across this one side and your opponents on the other. And I like that you can move around in tactical games in general, but this is much more interesting to me than and how you can move around. Although this game seems to kind of emphasize keeping your team together, because you can get like bonuses when your partners are working together, which I think also was in other tactical games. Did Fire Emblem have that? Maybe. I've dabbled. I tried Final Fantasy Tactics. I need to try that one again. But I think some other games had that where if you teams together. I think with Fire Emblem it was like if you were together when you're fighting alongside certain characters, that helped, because Fire Emblem had a sim thing too, where you could like kind of romance characters, but it was a different way. If you worked alongside you had your main character with other characters while they're attacking, it helped with their bonding. And this has some element of that, but it's much more refreshing this way. All right, so putting that aside, so in this game, the focus on this one, we're now set in a setting I'm not sure was in the other ones. I know Trails of Cold Steel was separate. In this one, we're in an area called the Republic of Calvard. I'll put this map up too. I'm looking at it on the screen here in post. And in Trails of Cold Steel, I know we were focusing on a military school in the adjacent country, which is called the Erebonian Empire. And from what it looks like on the map, these are the two major powers on this continent that is part of the overarching world. So there is something here. This is something else. I thought this game was something where they might be like they're in their own self-contained stories, kind of like Final Fantasy usually does, or something. But it is more like Persona So in like Persona, there it's in our world, and the characters traverse to these like spirit realm type places and fight shadows and stuff. But like in Persona 5, for example, there was a thing where in 5 you could see a poster of one of the main characters from 4, who was a pop idol named I think her name was Rise. It's been a long time since I played. I think that's the right name. She was the brown-haired girl who was a pop idol, and she's canonically interested in your main character in that one. You can choose not to romance her, but it's anyways, you see her. I'm getting off topic. You see her a poster of her in Persona 5. So each of those games are like the characters are there, and there was one game or a couple games that were only on the 3DS, I think, that where the characters interact, but they don't ever remember it. And I wish they canonically would have those characters meet. By the way, come on, Atlas, do it. Make the Persona characters meet each other. Obviously, there's gonna be an age difference because like if Persona 3 is like in 2009, and if Persona 5 is in 2016 or so, then it's gonna be a 7-year difference in age. But like have them meet as adults or something. I think they're just moving on. They've been releasing some other games recently. They had Shin Megami 5, and I hope Persona 6 will be coming in the future. It's been, oh yeah, this is 10 years now since Persona 5 came out. Like it came out in the U.S. in 17, but that's when I played it. But in 16, I think it came out in Japan. So we're coming on to 10 years since Persona 5. My God. So anyways, yes, interconnected worlds here. So in Cold Steel, I know you're in the Empire, and this one you're in this Republic. So these look, according to the way this looks on the map, they're the two biggest countries, and there are similar years. I used to think they were all separate, self-contained, as I just said. So let's talk about the story a little bit. And this is what really made me want to like talk about this one. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So this one is more interesting to me compared to what I did in Cold Steel, because our protagonist starts out as an adult. In Cold Steel, they started out with a bunch of kids who were part of a military academy in the Empire region, and they had this Persona-esque sim stuff going on, which was okay, but it stresses me out a bit because I am a perfectionist, and I like get obsessed with trying to get this game doing that. And I even the same with playing Final Fantasy X a bit last year, and I was reading how that one you have to like complete certain things in the area or you can't do it. And this one has a little bit of that, but they're hard to miss in this game, so I stuck to that. So anyways, yes, you're in this republic, and you're playing a young man who has his own business of doing kind of a what would you call him? He's not a mercenary. He does this job. I can't find a good term for him, but he's like the main character's name is Van Arkwright, and he does like these. He's kind of this handyman, odd jobs person he's almost into the gray area of mercenary, except he's not going after people, or he's not assassinations. He's not dealing with stuff like that or fighting people like that. But there's a history behind him too. I'll get into a bit that seems to be imply that he has military training, but he lives in the capital city of the Republic, and of what's it called again? Edith, and he is there living on an existence of doing jobs, and he lives in a part of the city called the Old Town, and living with the flat above the, or is that what we call it in British, apartment or flat above a restaurant, and he goes about his days doing jobs for people that are not something that the police would handle. Or I have to bring up briefly too. There's a group in this world called Bracers. They have a vibe to them similar to how the Jedi were treated in Star Wars, where they exist in almost every country, and they don't quite circumvent, but they do kind of do that. They don't kind of above the different governments, but they work within this in a way where they can handle stuff that might be too hard for the police, because there's an angle there too where these people are often superhuman to some degree. They have this kind of area here which reminds me of One Piece, where some people could just become superhuman, and they and people are like, just okay, yeah, that person might become a bracer, or they might go into military or something else, and they're just better, and there's no like There's not like in Star Wars where like, oh, they explain, oh, these people can use the Force. It's like One Piece again, where it's like, oh, well, they're stronger, so they're be careful around them. And a lot of these people, bracers seem to be that way, and they have different ranks and stuff. And those people handle a ton of jobs too, of helping people to some degree, but they're very honorable kind of people, and so both them and the police to some degree look down upon our main character Van because he takes all kinds of other jobs. But when you look at the story, this is part of what I like about it too. He's basically just picking up the pieces of stuff that slips through the cracks, so to speak, of any kind of job that would happen. And then because of the RPG type thing, there are enemies to fight, and they're usually, in this case, they're monsters, and they're all kinds of creepy, crawly things and other. They run the gamut of everything, and like in the recent area I was in, you were fighting these gargoyle-esque like things with wings and arms, and they were like demonic looking a little bit, and then you get like the jelly tentacle things and all kinds of stuff. The Japanese people, they're very creative with the enemy types, in my opinion. I like it. And so Van takes jobs from, like, there's one job where you are helping a woman find out what happened to her missing boyfriend, or you're like helping this one guy just return a locket he stole when he was a young and he was a thief, and he feels bad and guilty about it. So you go about investigations like this to help find kind of stuff, and then you take jobs. There's an intelligence agency in here too, part of the federal level of the Republic's government, that you work with them. I think he even has a friend there, and then you take jobs from them with monster extermination. So Van does all these interesting jobs, and he's a really cool looking character. He's got the slick jacket, he's got the neat hairstyle, and so the main story though comes in hand here, where he takes a job from this other main character named Agnes, and she's a student from one of these prestigious school there, and we find out she's the great-granddaughter of a very pivotal figure that I know has been mentioned elsewhere, named Claude Epstein. And forgive the last name, it really is Epstein. I know people are going to immediately, if anyone who's watched this and has never heard of the real-life gentleman, the guy named Epstein, that we all know, Jeffrey Epstein, I think, was his name. Yes, this guy's named Epstein. So Claude Epstein, to do a little history, just a little bit, I know, was a genius character who lived like 50, 60 years before the present time of some of these games, and who created a unique technology called Orbital technology, which is like overtaken any other kind of industrial stuff. So there's actually a point in here where they mention that like about internal combustion engines, which is the stuff we use in cars, used to be used in this world, but now orbital technology has become the de facto thing that run all kinds of stuff, everything. They still got radios and TVs and everything else, and all this stuff seems to run on that kind of stuff from some kind of raw material called septium, if I recall the name correctly. And so anyways, Claude Epstein is mentioned, I think, in some of the other games, and so this girl named Agnes, what's her last name? Actually, I don't know her last name, because that's something that's still coming up. She's hiding her last name, I think. So anyways, Agnes is seeking out some mysterious items that her great-grandfather had created that have some unique powers, and so she's going down a route of trying to find where these things are, because like I don't know why the rest of her family isn't concerned about this. So see, it seems that Professor Epstein did not have any other heirs that were like stayed in the business. I don't know where. So I'm wondering what other companies that are running his stuff, that his technology. If he just like patented it but let other people use it. Because one of the aspect here I want to bring up about how the combat works too is that on top of all these characters being super powered, there are these machines they use. I forget what they call them now. Oh wait, there is a. Where was I? So anyways, yes. This orbit technology allows people, especially these bracers and others, this isn't something that seems to be readily available to the public. The bracers and other people, like, and probably the military of these different big countries, probably the only ones who are handed out these things to deal in combat with themselves or fighting each other, because there seems to be a big this Republican the empire I mentioned previously seemingly are always at odds with each other, and so they're probably fighting each other. And like I said, there's also intelligence agencies and things, and so they use these technologies to fight each other or fight monsters, and that's a major part of the combat here. So all right, where was I off topic? So back to the story. Yes. So in this main story, you play as Van Arkwright, who's doing all these odd jobs, and once you team up with Agnes, there's a very interesting story going on here, where she's chasing down these things created by her great grandfather, the Professor Epstein, who made the orbital technology, and our main antagonists seem to be a on the rise mafia group who is trying to who have come into possession of a number of those items that Agnes is seeking out as well, and we're trying to find them all before too many people get harmed. By the way, this story is very adult-like, and to some degree, there are characters in here who died. I was very surprised. Spoilers. There's a character you meet early on, a little scumbag guy who likes going around and doing jobs where he's like this very slimy little guy who just lives his own life, doing exploiting things, they mention he gets his throat slit later on. He dies in the story. It's like, holy shit. I was not expecting that in this story. And there's all kinds of other stuff like that. But anyways, back to that mafia group. Yeah, they're trying to get these items, and then you're trying to get them back, find these ones, because like this has a little of a globe-trotting aspect too, where you're going around different areas. Like the area I'm in now has feels like it's based on like Dubai or someplace else in the Middle East. And we went to an area, a previous area was like in a city in the east part of the Republic, which has a Oriental flair to it, and there's other kinds of things like that going, feelings to that. So we're going to these different areas where these items have been dispersed that Agnes is seeking out, and with every one, I'm enjoying this too. We're doing this episodic bit where every area has a whole story to itself as well, and we're interacting with all the people around there and getting to know the lay of the land, and now we're also kind of doing a typical anime thing where with every area we go to, we meet new characters, and like one of them is gonna become an ally or join the team. So far, other than Agnes, I've had two other characters join the team who are like gonna probably be permanent members throughout this, at least in this video game. I'm really enjoying that aspect and the differences and changes they have from each other. I'm just loving this game because there's an interesting story going on here where Van has a background too, where he has this connection with all these different characters, and we're like trying to figure out what his background is with that. And it's the recent interactions with him and a friend who's part of that intelligence agency that works of the Republic suggests that he was in the military when in his youth and was part of a major conflict. So he's a very aware character who's like not. We don't have him being this very uncomfortable character with stuff going on. The closest we have with stuff like that is there's an elite member of the Bracer group who might have been like one of his peers or maybe even his senior in some point when in his youth somewhere along the way, and every time she's around he kind of just they kind of got this. It's a woman named what's her name now? Elaine, I think is her name, and she's got this big sister attitude to him, and he's the little brother, and it's the only character you really see that kind of gets under his skin, so to speak, where he's like, oh gosh, I don't want to be around her because she's just gonna lecture me. You get his inner thoughts a lot in here too, and it's very refreshing to see this kind of reactions and stuff, but just to have him fleshed out. But between that and Agnes, there's stuff with Agnes too that's very something hidden there. She seems to have political connections. She might be related to somebody who's in politics, and so we're getting this different dynamic of these characters. This guy who's like lives in among the lower class, so to speak. And he likes that, and he works with, like, he lives in a flat with these father and daughter and actually and a granddaughter who run a restaurant, and he lives in this old town, but then he get to see him interact with other people who have moved up into higher jobs, and he stays there at this one spot where he's just in the right time, always at the right time to do these jobs and work with these other people, and it's just so refreshing to see a character who's not doing the school life stuff again. Combat here is very interesting. You got a combination of arts, crafts, arts and crafts, and you other things and it depends on what character you use, and they have different weapons. Van uses some kind of sword thing. Agnes is a mage, essentially. She uses a staff instead. And all these different characters. The other two characters are what's her name, Frere, and there's Aaron. Yeah, just Aaron, and they both can. Aaron is a dual sword wielder, and Frey uses a machine gun. She's part of some. She looks like she's like part of this nomadic military society that moves around everywhere, and she she's only 13, but she's wielding a game machine gun in here, and so yeah, her and then we get these variety of characters with the different weapons they can use, but while at the same time they all have the main characters we're interacting with have those combat orbital machines, and I'm still learning this part, so this don't take a lot of, I can't give any good tutorials on this yet, but the orbital stuff seems to involve using a lot of using a core thing, a kind of quartz they call it, which is some kind of which sounds like the mineral, and then depending on which one you use, it can allow you to wield different types of elemental magic of sorts, and you can use water, which has all these things have combat what do you call it, like where you can attack a character, but the water one, some others might be like have healing properties too. The water one seems to be particularly aimed at also being support or healing. And there's also fire, wind, and I think there's like space and some other time or something like that. I haven't got deep enough in the game to learn those other ones, but they have both combat and support type properties to some of them, and you got to go to shops and stuff to make those, to upgrade some of those things too. And it's very interesting combat too. So some of the combat, I think I've talked on it briefly earlier, was in this it's got the tactical RPG style, but this I think starting with the Cold Steel series up to before, this now has an aspect where it's not a tile based movement. There's an area of movement, but it allows you to go around and hit your enemies from different sides, and there can be many enemies on a field. That's what makes it tricky too. You only have up 4 at most, and at least in this game, I thought in Cold Steel you sometimes can get more. At least I played Cold Steel 1 on my PS Vita years ago, and I thought you had more team members at some point. But in this one, for sure, you just got 4. But you can have up to I was in one fight, and it was like 5 or 6 enemies, maybe 7 even. And I had to keep my characters together and just use these wider attacks and not separate, because it's hard to you have to be close, I think, to use some of the healing stuff and on each other. And there's also items you can buy like any other game, and they even have a cooking aspect as well. So anyways, yeah, that was just me rambling about this. I really like this game. I'm going to do a final thing on this main story when I'm done with it. I really am enjoying this Van's story and Van and Agnes' story, because they have 2 things going on here that I don't know if they're going to be tied together, or if this is just it's just very interesting to see have an anime-esque story where we have an adult character and going about the world living his life, rather than the school thing that I've seen so much in other stories. So I really just wanted to get into that, talk about that, and just I've really sunk a lot of time in this. I forget when I started this game, maybe right after Christmas. So I've put 30 hours in this already, which actually spread out isn't that bad. But when I play this, I put 4 hours into it or more the other night, and I was up all late for the first time in a long time just playing this game. And it's just so fun. the combat is, and there's a quality of life with some of the gameplay too that makes it helpful with that. They actually have a button on there. You could just press L3, which would be on PlayStation, and you click that and you can have the gameplay speed up, almost like it were. Or if you ever played any games in emulation, you can do that with that. But like the fun part of this is the music you can still hear the music played normally. It only speeds up the gameplay. I just gotta be careful with it because I gotta watch carefully the characters' movements and whose turn it is, so I don't, because these enemies in here don't mess around. I'm playing this on normal and I've still had a hard time, and I've over leveled my characters at some point with the grinding, and I still have a hard time with some of these enemies. They'll kick your ass easily. So it's a great game, and I recommend anyone who watches who has never played Trails to try it out. These games in general. After this one, I'll probably go back to try the Trails Through Sky series a bit, but and maybe go back at some point. I want to go back. I did play I played like 10 hours or more of one of the Cold Steel games because I wanted to like really familiarize it with them. I just got burned out with it, and also I was stuck at a boss at one point. That was part of it. I kept losing. That was where I was like I talk about that game was I was only playing on normal, and this boss was kicking my butt. I reached out to somebody else once, and they told me just lower the difficulty to beat it, and that was the only way I was able to do it. Cause I tried for hours to beat that boss, and it kicked my butt many times. No matter how hard I tried to change around using the different tactics the games provide. So, anyways, yeah, this game is awesome. When I finish the story, I'm gonna review that because this goes into an interesting story. Each story is like its own little. They're doing these chapters too. Well, they're self-contained stories, but they're also connecting it to the end goal of something. I feel like part of what's going to happen here is Agnes is going to decide to destroy these objects created by her great-grandfather because they're causing so much pain and misery to other people. We're having this kind of thing where like maybe these objects are too dangerous for the world. I'm getting a theme there from that angle, so I'm going to review that when I get to the conclusion of this one. So that's it. I'm done rambling. Thanks for watching.